Hello and welcome to our Lakeside Chat. We are David Wofford and Katie Noonan, co-chairs of the Rotary Nature Center Friends. And we're so happy that you can join us tonight.
As we begin our program, it is important for us to acknowledge that we are on stolen land, that Lake Merritt is part of Ohlone territory. We hear now from Corinna Gould, spokesperson for the Confederated Villages of LaShawn and co-founder of Segura Te Land Trust.
Good afternoon, relatives. My name is Corinna Gould. I am the spokesperson for the Confederated Villages of LaShawn. We are here today at what most folks think of as Lake Merritt. We are in the territory of Huichin. Huichin is actually a territory that encompasses 6 Bay Area cities: Oakland, Berkeley, Alameda, Emeryville, Albany, and Piedmont. And so this is a place that my ancestors have been since the beginning of time. And this was a place of abundance. I'm so happy that people from all walks of life that now come into our territory can enjoy this beautiful place that my ancestors have enjoyed since the beginning of time. My relationship to the land that I have been born to, raising my children and grandchildren here, has been to tell the story, the truth of what happened on this land before other people came here. I'm hoping that as we begin to learn these lessons of fires in California, the pandemic that's happening, that human beings come back to living in reciprocity with the earth.
It's really wonderful to see all of you tonight, and wonderful to hear from Corinna, who's going to be our speaker in August. So looking forward to that. I'm going to take a few moments to let everyone see some of the good work that Rotary Nature Center Friends has been doing in the past month, fulfilling our mission to provide education, and we're going to get here. Yes. Are we seeing my slide?
Yes.
So last Lakeside Chat, we heard from a group called the East Bay Academy of Young Scientists, and we actually met up with them again this month. Here we are working with students from the Rose Foundation New Voices Are Rising internship program or externship program, where they explore environmental issues and also get a deeper understanding of the environment we all share. We did get a chance to meet up with some of the East Bay E-Bay's students at Lake Merritt and share some time with Janai Southworth, who is a plankton biologist from the Gulf of the Farallones Marine Sanctuary. She helped us look at some of the plankton in Lake Merritt. You can see that the kids really enjoyed getting a chance to use technology to look at Lake Merritt. We also did water quality testing, which is a constant monitoring activity that we do with young people and also adults who come out to our programs. So at this point, I would like to introduce one of our board members at Rotary Nature Center Friends, Patty Donald, who also did the trivia deck, but some of you weren't there. So Patty has been a leader in bringing people and nature together through interpretive services in the Bay Area for over 50 years, maybe. Patty got her bachelor's degree in interpretation, natural history and interpretation, and did a lot of that. She became a teacher, certificated teacher, and she founded the beautiful Shorebird Nature Center at the Berkeley Marina. Patty is such a valued member of our team, and all of the curriculum that she developed at the Shorebird Nature Center really does apply with hardly any modification to the flora, fauna, and hydrology that we see here at Lake Merritt. And Patty also was a leader in developing a docent program for people to bring the material, the curriculum to life by interaction with knowledgeable and enthusiastic people. And so Patty's going to be our MC now. I'm taking the night off, and I'm going to, we're so happy to have Patty. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Patty now to introduce our very special guest that we have this evening. Patty, are you ready?
Yes, thank you so very much for that kind introduction. I appreciate that so much, Katie. I got to have Katie as a teacher and then as a docent when she retired. And that's developed a love of things. I kind of thought when I retired I was going to stop doing marine education and move on to the science of history of saving old houses. But I'm here today to talk about one of my students that started with me when she was 5 years old and was part of helping me develop the education programs that I did at the Berkeley Marina. I'm so very proud of Audra Barrios and her contribution to the environmental education. She's very talented and she has the ability to draw very creative, strong women to support and be on the board and work with her through the Things That Creep board that I'm on with her. I'm on 3 boards. Audra came to me when I had just said I was going to retire, and she was speechless. It was like, wait a minute, you can't stop doing this because I want to do something like this. And so you still have to be there so that I can do this. And it's like, well, I'm not dying. I'm still going to be here. So she and I have been working together. She's pledged ahead, and if she needs me, she asks me questions, and I love being on her board because everybody on the board is so smart and I learn a lot of things from them. I think you're going to learn a lot of things from Audra today. She and her family are very nature oriented. I had every single kid in my marine biology class, and Audra got her degree in marine biology and then ended up branching off into the direction of reptiles, which has been absolutely fantastic. So you're going to really enjoy meeting her and listening to her program. And I want you to know, I know I am going to be contributing directly right after this program to the Things That Creep to make sure that there's enough contributions to the nonprofit so that they can continue to provide low-cost programs for their children. And I hope you are so thrilled with her that you also think about doing that, as well as donating to the Rotary Nature Center Friends. So I'm going to stop here and we're going to let Audra talk next. I'm going to introduce Audra. She will be having her snake ambassadors to show you and teach you about your neighbors in your neighborhood. Thank you for coming tonight, and I hope you enjoy this.
Patty, so please keep the question, put your questions in chat, and keep your questions coming in chat. Raise your hand if you have a pressing question. We may Audra may be able to answer questions then or at the end of her presentation. Thanks.
Audra. We need to unmute Audra.
Oh no. Audra, can you unmute yourself?
Thank you.
She can't.
Well, no,
let's work on that one. That sounds like fun.
Oh my goodness.
Let's go to Audra. Oh, I do have to say that another person on the board and staff person, Anush, is here today.
All right. Hello. Hello. Can I be heard?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you so much for having me this evening. My name is Audra Barrios, and I was born and raised here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I'm really excited about wildlife in general and having access to a nature center in the town where I grew up in Berkeley, allowed me to grow that love for the natural world. It was laying on my belly and watching barnacles eat with their little fan feet that like just captivated me. I was like, what? This is under the dock? Like they're doing this thing. And as I've grown older and gotten to know about more animals that we have here in the Bay Area, I didn't even realize until I was an adult how many amazing reptiles and amphibians we have here. We actually are in a hotspot for biodiversity of amphibians, and we have a ton of reptiles. We actually have 20 species of snakes in the greater Bay Area that you can find. When you're out and about, you might find snakes in your backyard. You might find snakes while you're hiking, while you're out in parks. And one of the things that I have noticed too over the years is the massive amounts of habitat loss and how little attention is paid to animals like reptiles and amphibians and invertebrates. When invertebrates, there's more invertebrates than there are all the rest of the animals, but it's not animals that a lot of conservation effort and energy is going into. A lot of that conservation energy is going into big charismatic species like pandas and stuff. And those are important too. They're all wonderful, but there's a lot of different pieces to keeping an ecosystem healthy. It's not just saving one large animal. There's a lot of components to conservation of the natural world. And seeing all this, it's really easily to feel really hopeless about what's going on. And starting Things That Creep was kind of my coping mechanism to kind of have a way to contribute something positive towards conservation. Because realistically, the natural world is only going to be saved if we fight for it. You know, it's not a priority really for a lot of people. So learning about it, and if you don't know what's there, you don't care, right? If you don't know that there's cool snakes in your backyard or cool frogs or cool birds, you know, like, then why does it doesn't even matter to you. So I wanted to create an organization where we could help bridge that gap, and we could introduce people and give people as many opportunities as possible to actually meet some of the animals and cool critters that we share an ecosystem here with, as I was able to do as a kid with the invertebrates and the marine life here in the Bay Area. Because in the Bay Area, we have so many different ecosystems. There's so much going on. So it's very, very cool. Cool stuff we have here in the Bay. So let me share a screen here, and I will pop into Things That Creep a little bit more. So Things That Creep is a science education nonprofit. We do hands-on programs with reptiles and amphibians all over the Bay Area. And our most recent project has been our neighborhood snakes curriculum. We've been really focused on teaching students in the Bay Area about the snakes that they might find in their backyards. And this project was really propelled by my neighbor knocking on my door and asking me if my snakes had gotten out. And no, my snakes had not gotten out. But he proceeded to show me a photograph of 3 decapitated garter snakes that he had found in his backyard and was scared. And he had killed because he didn't realize that they're actually eating slugs in his backyard. They're totally harmless. And so I wanted to create a program that teaches people how to identify our snakes, right? So if you know what it is and you know that it's just a slug eater and it's just going to hang out and not hurt you, then you aren't going to hurt it. So that was kind of the main goal of our program, is really to create that bond, and being able to touch the animals, being able to meet animals that are used to people really helps bridge that gap. The animals really, really speak for themselves once you're looking at their faces and seeing them smell you with their tongue. They're the ones that are actually creating that bridge. So this is one of our animal ambassadors. Over spring, our neighborhood snakes curriculum was brought to almost 450 Richmond students at public schools. It was free to the schools, free to the students. And our curriculum is for kindergarten through 3rd grade is what we've developed so far. It is to the national science standards. So it's hitting curriculum standards while teaching basic science concepts and introducing them to cool snakes. So we're trying to hit all the boxes. It's a mix of videos. So before we come into the classroom with the animals, the teachers have videos to go over with the kids. They have worksheets and various activities that they're doing before we even come into the classroom with the animals. This is another one of our animal ambassadors. This is Miley, our California king snake. And we start every program teaching about how to handle animals safely, and also, explaining that these are animals that are very used to people. These are animals that have been in captivity their whole lives, or a large part of their life. So they have had good interactions with people and they feel comfortable with people. Whereas this is not the reality. If you grab a snake that's, going through your backyard, that snake's going to try to get away. The snake might poop on you. Like this is a different sort of interaction than they would get if they were looking at animals in the wild. So we have two different king snakes. We have a little baby king snake and our adult king snake. And then we spend a lot of time on anatomy and some just basic what is a reptile concepts in our curriculum as well. Here the students are looking at the skeleton of a snake that we have. And our curriculum was written by a ton of different people, a lot of different educators and scientists from all over the Bay Area, as well as people really involved in citizen science with reptiles have helped review our curriculum. And there is a ton of information about all of our Bay Area snakes, not even all of them, just a few, just the most common ones, because there is a lot. And some of them you're way less likely to see than others. So we really did focus on the most common ones that we have. We sent out surveys for the students at the end of each program for some of our schools. And this was for kindergarten, and the teacher asked the questions. Did you enjoy the program? Yes. Draw a picture of a snake. They drew a king snake. And the third square is, how did you feel before our program about snakes? And then 4 was, how did you feel after our program? So just from their visual illustrations, we're kind of getting them an idea of how they're feeling before and after the programs. And for second grade, our surveys were a little, we wanted them to actually write us sentences. And one of the questions here is, how did you feel about snakes before the program? And he says, I felt scared. How do you feel about them now? They're not all bad. And then, is there something else you'd like to share? Snakes are very cool and just want to survive like humans. So that they're getting that concept of, oh, this is just another animal in the ecosystem. It's just doing its thing. And that's really what we were hoping to accomplish. And here's another one. They felt worried about snakes before the program. After the program, they said they're awesome. Snakes are awesome. They learned snakes are important. And if they have anything else to share, I love that question because it's very open-ended. I love snakes. So we definitely shifted them a little bit. Even if it's a little bit, it shifts them in the right direction of understanding that these animals are awesome, they're important, and they're just part of the world that we live in. And it's important that we share that space with them because, this is their space too. So that is some of the basics about our Neighborhood Snakes program. And I thought from here, I would introduce you to some of these animal ambassadors that we have and give you guys a little intro to some of the snakes virtually. So I'm going to start with probably one of the most common snakes that you can find in the Bay Area. This is a snake that you can find hiking on trails. You can find it in your backyard. They do hang out in urban areas, and they are often confused with a rattlesnake for a few different reasons. So this is Slinky, and this is our gopher snake. Slinky's been with us for about 5 years now, and Slinky, smelling the camera here. So they have an amazing sense of smell. And so their tongues are always coming out when they're exploring, when they're checking out new things. They can smell better than we can. They've also got their other senses too. Snakes have all the same stuff that we have, right? They've got a brain, eyes, they're just missing legs. That's all. They've got heart, all the same internal anatomy for the most part to mammals. It's just long and skinny instead. So they have a very similar pattern to a rattlesnake, right? Brown, blotchy. It's kind of a common pattern in the snake world. It's good camouflage. There is a few different snakes that we have here in the Bay Area that have a similar sort of pattern. The real difference between a rattlesnake and a gopher snake, is venom, right? Rattlesnake is our only dangerous venomous snake that we have in the Bay. They are thicker bodied, much, much fatter bodied. Gopher snakes have a long, skinny body. And if we take a look at the tail here, we've got a long, skinny tail. And the tail starts right here. You can see where the scales change. It's trying to, nope, doesn't want to let me show you. So yeah, right where the scales change, this is where the tail starts. So they've got ribs that go all the way to here. Those ribs protecting their insides and whatnot. Another thing that gopher snakes do to defend themselves when they get really scared is that they actually shake their tail. They obviously do not have a rattle, right? Just a long tail, but if they whack it against something, it makes noise, right? And it's distracting the predator from its important part, which is his head, right? His head has his brain, his eyes, all that stuff. So if you're getting attacked by a predator, you're scared, you don't want the animal to get you in the head, you're gonna sacrifice your tail so that maybe you'll survive. And so you'll see that when snakes are getting defensive, a lot of different types of snakes do this. Our king snakes also do this. They'll actually shake their tail. And so that can be a little bit confusing because you're like, wait, are you a rattlesnake? You're shaking all over the place. And they also will flatten their head and hiss. So it'll make their head look a little more triangle shaped. You can see his head right now is normal. I'm not stressed head. If it was a rattlesnake, the head would be much bigger. The face would just be bigger in general. Gopher snakes kind of have a little tiny head. All right. So this is a teenager. They are one of probably the longest snake that we have here. They can easily get, 4 or 5 feet long, some even a little bit longer than that, really, really big ones. They're excellent at climbing. They're excellent at swimming. Most snakes can do both of those things. Having the flexibility in their body and their spine and all those muscles really allow them to do all sorts of cool stuff. Okay, I'm gonna stick Slinky away and pull out the next animal, but if anyone has any questions about gopher snakes or anything in general, you can type them into the chat right now while I bring out our next animal ambassador. Our next animal ambassador is going to be our adult male king snake. So this is a California king snake. There are 2 types of king snakes that we can find in our area. And that is, one of them is this one. And this is our standard California king snake. They've got the black and white banding. And this is a male. If it were a female, they could get a little bit bigger. That's kind of the general rule with snakes. The females in general tend to get bigger than the boys. He was previously someone's pet and they were moving and could no longer take care of him. So he was donated to our local reptile shop, the East Bay Vivarium, and the East Bay Vivarium donated him to our programs so that he could come out and teach students about king snakes. So really grateful to have this guy. He has been a really, really great animal ambassador. Not all animals can do this job. Most of them probably can't. That's like one of the best parts of this job is every individual animal has a totally different personality. Every individual species is a little bit different, and then every individual is different. So not all of them have the personality. They have to have a curious personality, more curious than afraid, right? Because if they're curious and they realize, okay, there's nothing bad is going to happen, this is just an outing where people are going to give me back massages, and they're down with it. But you have some animals that are fearful, and those animals never end up making it as animal ambassadors just because it's just too scary for them. Because as you can imagine, humans are pretty scary a lot of the time. And snakes know that. They know to avoid people. So I got a great question. How do you know if a snake is a male or a female? In general, you can't really know by looking at them easily. The way that a lot of snake breeders do is they stick a probe inside of the cloaca. It's their everything hole where the tail starts, so where the scales change. And depending on how deep it goes, that tells you if it's a boy or a girl. Male snakes have 2 penises inside of their body. And so that's kind of how you can tell. But by looking at them, there's not usually an easy way of, unless you know it's a full grown adult and you're like, oh, it's not getting bigger, that's a boy or a girl. But that's, so it's a little hard. So for a lot of our animals, we actually don't know the sex because it's not important to us. It doesn't matter, so we don't even bother them with that. He came known as a known boy, so that's why we know that he's a boy, but I haven't checked, so maybe they lied. But yeah, so the other king snake that we have that you can find maybe the Santa Cruz Mountains and in the Sierras and stuff is our mountain coastal king. And they actually also have red bands. So the black, white, and the red banding. Really cool king snake. Anyone know why it's called a king snake? Type it into the chat if you know why king snakes are called king snakes. Has to do with their diet. They do rule over other snakes and they eat rattlesnakes. Yeah, so king snakes are known for being wonderful, wonderful eaters. They eat everything, including other snakes. And they can also eat rattlesnakes and they are immune to rattlesnake venom. So if Miley were to get bit by a rattlesnake, nothing would actually happen to Miley, which is pretty cool. So I do let them hang out on my shoulders. It's a really easy way to support the snake. When I'm holding snakes, I want to support as much of their body as possible. So that's why he's sitting on my shoulders right now. He's trying to go home. It's his cage behind us. He's like, is it time? Time to go back? All right, I will bring out our next animal ambassador here. Let me stick him. Actually, we'll send him all the way home. No, you didn't want to go home? You were lying? You were lying? Yeah, he was lying. Go home, Miley. So our next animal ambassador was also a pet. They had 3 different owners before they came to us. And they have been in captivity far too long to be released into the wild, and they are eating little baby mice, which is huge because this is a snake that is notorious for not surviving in captivity. So someone did bring it into captivity many years ago, and they succeeded. And now this is the fattest one of these I've ever seen because he loves mice so much. Let's get him out here. This is our newest animal ambassador to our programs. This is a full-grown adult ringneck snake, and this is a really gigantic ringneck snake. They're often a little skinnier, and they come in a huge range of colors. They've got no pattern. They've got a patternless back. Sometimes it's more brown, sometimes it's more olive, sometimes it's a little more green, and their belly is a bright color. Usually it's reds, oranges, even coral colored. So you can see the belly right there. So this guy's defense, if he were to get really scared, is actually to curl his tail up and turn it over. So you're looking at the bright red belly, and hopefully that would scare off a predator to be like, nah, you probably taste terrible. I'm gonna leave you alone. Usually these guys are eating little slugs, little salamanders, stuff like that in the wild. They are a very small snake. But we have a few really tiny snakes here in the Bay Area, but this is definitely one of the smallest. You can see them hiking around in Tilden Park, in the East Bay Regional Parks in general. I saw one across the path at the Botanical Garden in Berkeley recently, maybe like a few months ago. So if you're very lucky, you'll see these little guys out and about. They are a little shy, so they're not always cruising, but if you're lucky, you'll see one of these little snakes cruising. These guys are rear-fanged venomous, as a lot of the small snakes are. They have venom for killing slugs or little tiny foods. And also their mouths are so small that they're not actually dangerous to people. And they do tend not to bite. They're so small that they don't even try. They're like, why would I try? But they are rear-fanged venomous, and so are garter snakes, and a few others of our tiny snakes here in the area.
Audra, we had a question pertaining to the king and gopher snakes, asking whether they kill prey by constriction like a python. How does this one get its prey?
That's a good question. I've only had them they have venom. So the venom is definitely helping them kill their prey. And because he eats live, I'm going to be honest, I've been dropping the mouse in and walking away. I don't enjoy watching. So I'm not 100% sure, but I assume he constricts it. I'm assuming he does. But I'll watch tonight. I have a mouse for after the show. So Good question. Good question.
And king and gopher snakes also have constriction.
Yeah, they do. They do. King snakes sometimes will just swallow stuff whole. Like sometimes they don't even care. But yeah, in general, yeah. All right, I'm gonna pop this little guy away, and I'm gonna introduce you to one more animal ambassador that we have here. And this is a snake that, oh, it's not written. Nobody wants to go back into they're like, no, this is a party. I'm being part of this party. And you go. Okay, so my next animal ambassador is a snake that's next to me right here. Let's see if I can zoom her in. She is a garter snake. This is probably the most common snake that you'll see in urban areas. And we have 3 different varieties of garter snakes in the Bay Area, and they all have a lot of variation. But in general, they have a stripe down their back. Sometimes the stripe is yellow, sometimes it's more blue. This one is kind of like white blue. Let me see if I can bring her over. I spooked her. She was up in the front earlier. So notice I'm actually not going to pull her out of this little display case. She is not comfortable with people at all. About 2 years ago, she was hanging out in someone's yard, and they saw her, got spooked, and called a rattlesnake removal, but they didn't actually wait for the rattlesnake removal to arrive, and instead they took a shovel to her. So she is missing her full tail. Right now you can, oh, she's pulling it up here. You can see she's got a few pretty gnarly scars, and then she is missing her tail almost at her cloaca. Had she gotten hit, just a little further up and lost a little more of her body, she wouldn't have survived. So she actually got pretty lucky with where she was hit. So she's very, very shy, as you can imagine. She's not super excited about people, which is fair. People haven't necessarily been very nice to her in the past. So that's a thing that we like to show the kids is, like, this is a snake that's not used to people. And because people haven't been nice to it, whereas every other snake that we've met today are animals that are very used to people, and so interact well with people, whereas this is one we just look at because she went through that, and we don't want to really put very much more stress on her than we have to. But she, I think, has been a pretty powerful learning tool for kids to really understand that, like, being afraid and hurting these animals does have an impact on them. And the snake is actually very, very amazing. After she lost her tail, the rattlesnake removal came, and they collected her, brought her home, nursed her back to health, and actually she proceeded to give birth to over 50 babies after that. And those babies were all released out into the wild, but she still had pretty gnarly injuries. So she stayed with them for almost a year before they brought her to our programs. So she's been a really awesome animal ambassador. And let me hop in. So that's the animals that we have that represent some of the snakes that we have in California. But there are a lot more. There are a lot more snakes in the Bay Area. So I'm going to pop up my slideshow here again and talk about just a few more. If I can find my slideshow again, here it is. Okay. Okay, so I want to hop into just a few more of my favorite snakes here. This is the rubber boa. They are just a brown snake, and actually all I had were headshots, so I'm getting some headshots of this snake. But there are only boa that we have here in the Bay Area. They average about 2 feet long. And they're all brown. Sometimes they're a little more pink. With most of the snakes, there is variation in color and pattern, although there is no pattern on our awesome little rubber boa. And they actually do give live birth. They're viviparous. And they don't reproduce very often compared to a lot of the other snakes that we have in the Bay Area. Next up, yellow belly racer. I love this snake because that's what a baby looks like. And this is what an adult looks like. And for a long time, people just assumed they were two different species because they look really, really different. But that pattern that they have that's similar to a gopher snake pattern, similar to a rattlesnake pattern, is really good camouflage. And as they get older, they switch into a different camouflage, and they are totally patternless as adults, which is pretty cool. Here's a close-up shot of his adorable little face. Garter snakes, we met one, but I really want to talk about them a little bit more because there is so much variation. This is two garter snakes that were found within 10 feet of each other. You can find different species in the same areas overlapping, and even within species, there's a lot of color variation. Garter snakes generally 1 to 2 feet long, kind of a smaller bodied snake, and they are very aquatic. So here's a photo of one swimming. So they are very comfortable in the water. They're comfortable catching fish. They're comfortable catching tadpoles. And it's a good way for them to escape, right? If they get scared, they actually go into the water and drop and swim away. This is a garter snake that was found in Castro Valley. So this is a Diablo range garter snake, no red at all, black and yellow stripes. So another type of garter snake. And then a lot of the snakes that we do find in the wild, they do have injuries, right? They have injuries from potential predators and other things they might have run into. This is one I saw on a trail hiking around Mount Tamalpais in Marin County. And you can see he's got an injury on his side. And a lot of red. So you're going to see some with red, but they all do, at least the 3 varieties that we have in the Bay Area, they do all have the stripe going down their back and swimming away. And then last but not least, the one venomous, dangerous snake that we have in the Bay Area, the Northern Pacific rattlesnake. So you can see what a heavy-bodied snake this is. This is a particularly big one, but they've got a really, really big body, and they've got, a stubby tail. It's not long and skinny, and they've got the rattle. It's a little bit hidden there. But this is a snake that really is a very shy snake. If you give it space, it is going to do its best to avoid you. If you see one and you're hiking around, just go around it, give it lots of space. And, if there's other people around, you can just warn them. If it's an easy way to have it relocated, it's always good to relocate them away from areas with a lot of people. If you don't know how to relocate a snake, don't try to relocate a rattlesnake by yourself. You are actually more likely to get bit by a rattlesnake if you try to kill it than if you just leave it alone. So don't ever try to kill a snake. If you need it out of your property or, out of an area with a lot of people, there's lots of different people that will come and actually move the snake for you. And just Google rattlesnake removal. People will come and move the snake for you. If you're around us, we'll come do it. To keep you from killing it, we'll happily come move the snake and move it somewhere safe. They don't want to hurt you. Snakes are only going to hurt you if you hurt them, right? If most snakes know that people are scary and they want to just leave. So if they're scared, they're going to leave the situation. It's only if they're trapped that they will actually hurt people. So that kind of wraps up the snakes that I wanted to talk about today. Things That Creep is a science education nonprofit, so we really rely on the support of everyone to make this happen. We have a ton of volunteers. So we have a lot of different ways that you can support our org if it's something that you think is important for people to know about. We are always looking for volunteers to help us bring these animals out, to teach about them. If you know teachers and educators, let them know about our program. Follow us on social medias. We're on all of them at Things That Creep. And then if you can, I know, everything's pretty crazy right now and it's rough, but if you can, donate to help us bring our program to schools all over the Bay Area. And if you want to meet our snakes in person, we're actually going to have an in-person fundraiser. It's our first one since before COVID, August 25th in San Francisco. And we will have a lot of our animal ambassadors there, including our neighborhood snakes. So if you want to come meet them, there will be an opportunity soon. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure, and I am happy to take all the questions that you guys may have now.
Thank you so much, Audra. What a wonderful presentation. I'm so proud of you and what you've accomplished. How many children you've been able to touch with your wisdom. Thank you so much. Do we have some questions? We can let people unmute if they have questions.
So I do see a question. Are there snake ranches, farms, hatcheries, or wranglers in the Bay Area for any reasons? There's all of those. There is a ton of different people that breed different types of snakes all over the Bay Area. And there is a lot of reptile rescues, and there's multiple rattlesnake removals that will come and move snakes for you. So there's a ton of resources in the Bay Area. There is a lot going on with herps here, which is cool. Where do rattlesnakes get removed to? That's a great question. So there have been studies that look at how far can you move them before they're screwed, basically, from their ecosystem. Because, you know, when an animal's lived in a while, it has its den, it has its spots and all those things. So we try not to move them that far. When we find, our facility, we're located at the Lick Your Eyeballs Reptiles facility in Castro Valley, and this was a rattlesnake in the picture that we found on the property. I usually just relocate them up into the forest, you know, maybe like a quarter of a mile away from the building. We don't take them very far from where they start, but everybody that's removing rattlesnakes probably has a different protocol for where they're taking the animals after they do move them. Sharing.
Thank you so much, Audra. Much appreciated. Thank you, everybody, for all your good questions. Katie, do you have something you want to wrap up with? Audra, well done. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
There are more questions popping up. Do you want me to keep going? Okay. How do 50 baby garter snakes fit into that adult? They're really, really small. They're little skinny, little spaghettis, not quite a small spaghetti, but they're just very, very small when they come out. What eats snakes? Birds, definitely birds. Cats, house cats are probably one of the biggest problems for snakes in the wild. Cats really kill indiscriminately. So probably bobcats as well, coyotes and stuff are also eating snakes. What do you do first if you get bit? If it's not a venomous snake, wash it out, soap and water, put a Band-Aid on it, call it a day. If it is a venomous snake, if you get bit by a rattlesnake, you go to the hospital. It's really what you need to do. You need to seek medical attention as soon as you can. And the sooner you can, the better. That's my recommendation. All right, well, do not try to suck out the venom. Yeah, there's a lot of like old wives' tales about ways to deal with rattlesnake venom. Sucking it out is definitely not going to help you. You definitely need to go and get anti-venom. And they will pump you up with anti-venom to help neutralize it, and you should be okay. If you get medical attention, normally people are okay after they get bit.
Janice?
Do we work with Oakland Unified School District students? We do. Most of our work with the Oakland School District up until now has actually been middle school, which has been really fun. We would love to bring K through 3rd into schools in Oakland, though. Maybe one of you can help make that happen.
There's a question of how did 50 baby garter snakes fit in the one adult shown?
They're very small. They're tiny. Tiny snakes.
Is it a live bird?
It is, yeah. Yep. Oh, I love it. In general, how are snakes doing in the area? So, I think that we really, really see a difference with whether or not there are outdoor cats. In areas where there are no outdoor cats, I feel like I see a healthier population, but, a cat can, clean few acres, regularly of herps. So, and habitat loss is a big thing. But there's a lot of the species that we have can actually cohabitate with people pretty well if we give them what they need to survive in our outside spaces. So when I lived in Richmond, I created a habitat for garter snakes. So shallow water bowls that I would regularly rinse out. Because, if you have a bird water bowl, your snakes and your salamanders are never going to get there. So shallow water bowl, and then lots of cover, lots of places for them to hide and feel safe. And then that will, the bugs will feel safe and hide, and that'll start to produce food, and you'll get the full ecosystem. I don't know exactly how many species of snakes are viviparous, but here in the Bay Area, definitely the garter snakes are, and then our rubber boas also give live birth. Well, the San Francisco garter snake is definitely on the endangered list. They have a very tiny range left. Recently, some information came out about them existing on the San Francisco airport property. So apparently there's a good population of them there. But their range, we've lost a lot of their range to habitat loss and just construction and stuff. And a lot of the other ones are doing okay here in the Bay, for the most part. Do snakes have the burrowing capacity of worms? Some snakes do burrow. So like our sharp-tailed snake, which is a snake that's a very, very tiny snake, does burrow. So yeah, a lot of snakes do burrow.
Sounds like they need to be smaller, though, to really do that.
I think so. Yeah. In general, the snakes that I'm aware of that burrow are small species. Even the bigger ones are like a foot or 2 feet long that burrow that I can think of. Yeah.
First of all, we want to thank Audra for really a spellbinding presentation to combine both the presentation, the PowerPoint, with actual the sharing of the animal ambassadors, with which you obviously have such a great understanding and bond with these individual animals and their species, is just really amazing and wonderful. And thank you again so much. And lucky students and kids who are able to have you come and share them in person, or to the people who are able to come out to the open house that you were mentioning earlier. So I want to thank also everyone for coming and being a lively audience and enjoying this with us at the beginning of our holiday weekend. It's really great to see all of you again. Many are repeaters. And I want to thank you for making time for this. We will be sending out a post chat email with some of the links that have been mentioned. And if you have any additional questions that we don't get to in the next few minutes, we're going to be able to send them to Audra, and if she can possibly give us some answers for you that we can share. So let's see. So our programs, this one included, are rebroadcast on the City of Oakland's KTAP channel TV, channel 10. And they're shown from 6 to 7 p.m. on Sundays. So the first 2 Sundays of the month are when they show old programs from the 20 that we currently have done. And then the last 2 Sundays of the month are devoted to the program of that month. So Audra's would be rebroadcast at the end of the month. And it's really, we thank KTOP for sharing our chats so that everybody gets a chance to watch them. We also have a playlist that you send out with our post-chat email that will allow you to browse and see some of the previous Lakeside chats. So coming up, we have a table and presentation tomorrow to help people in Oakland participate in the Snapshot Cal Coast BioBlitz program with the California Academy of Sciences. So this is a biodiversity survey of shore organisms. And of course, Lake Merritt is indeed part of the shoreline of California. So Rotary Nature Center Friends and some of our young people who've been working with us are going to be at the Lake Merritt Boating Center parking lot with some critters to meet. There are some of them are, so some of them are exotic, actually a lot of them are exotic. And when you take a photo with your iPhone and upload it to iNaturalist, it can be used to get a picture over a period of time as to the distribution of species as our climate changes and as population of humans increases and the many ways we spread things around in our environment change. So that's going to be tomorrow, actually, and it would be wonderful to see some of you there. On August 5th, our next Lakeside Chat will be provided by Karina Gould, who you saw speaking in the past in the introduction. And I see Janice waving her hand. Janice, would you like to unmute? Uh-oh. Okay, so I hope that we're all hearing this. Is there a technical problem? Oops. Okay, could you talk to somebody else? Okay, so we'll try to, we'll try to get your situation fixed. Okay. maybe one of the other people can help you out on that. Do I need to unmute you? Are you telling me that? Or maybe one of the other co-hosts can help unmute Janice. Anyway, to continue. I'm sorry.
Oh, there. It's done.
Yay! I know this technology can be really a challenge.
I just want to tell Audra, really interesting conversation. I was very tense today. I don't know if the reptiles are making me relax and everything, but it's been absolutely fantastic. And I'd love you to go into some OUSD classes, because sometimes when you have students that are not used to having mice and rats and snakes and all these different kinds of animals around them, they don't realize how wonderful they can be. So, I'm going to have to think of a school in OUSD that you can attend to. I have a private school that I'm going to suggest that they actually, it's an Afrocentric school. So it'd be wonderful for you to visit that school. It's also in Oakland.
Yay, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point, Janice. And I think many of us, we have another person hand up. Anyway, there are many people, if we have suggestions or can think of people who might want to contact Audra with her wonderful program. And so please you can send an email to me, or we've included Audra's contact information in chat. And if you didn't get it, we will definitely send it out in the post Zoom email. So you'll get a chance to get that information to make that contact.
And then, to be honest, while I was doing all this waving, my sister is on. She's not on as Allison Lord Walker. She's on as Cloven. And so this is the first time she's seeing in a chat. She happens to live in Montreal, Canada. So that's what.
Thank you for inviting her. So anyway, so next month on August 5th, we're really excited to give the full hour to Karina Gould, from the Confederated Villages of LaShawn and the Segura Team Press. She's going to, we're going to send out the Eventbrite very soon, hopefully with a chat email, and really excited to hear more from her. And then in August, Rotary Nature Center Friends is going to be partnering with the Exploratorium to have a on-site site exploration at Lake Merritt. And this will involve in-person carts, and we're 99% sure that we're going to be able to rent the upstairs at the boathouse so that we can focus on the problem of climate change and sea level rise and how that will impact Lake Merritt and people in the immediate community of Lake Merritt, and also the wider community of organisms and the entire planet. So anyway, it's gonna be a lot of fun. We should we'll be telling you more at the August Lakeside Chat, and we'll be sending out an Eventbrite for that so that everybody will know that it's happening. And so I'm going to continue with a few more slides here or at the end. This is a slide that shows the what we're going to be doing tomorrow with the Snapshot Cal Coast. We're going to be participating with people all around the up and down the coast, looking for the most wanted species. These are invasive and exotic species. The ones that are highlighted in yellow have been found before in Lake Merritt. And since we've had such a big drought regime for the last couple of years, we could find some more interesting species as we do our survey. So come on out if you would like to be part of monitoring and make a difference that way. We want to thank especially Rob Lamone, our producer of media and videos. I, Katie Noonan, and David Wofford are the co-chairs of Rotary Nature Center Friends. Kirsten Furman does artwork and design. Dr. Janice Lord-Walker, Betsy Schultz, Patty Donald, and many others have been volunteers in our programs. And we are looking for people who would be interested in helping out with a program at Lake Merritt with a group of students, just to work alongside and help with delivering that program. So send me an email if you would be interested in that. We would like to thank our generous donors who have made donations to our program. There's shared with you the ways that you can do that. This keeps us going in providing all the things that it takes to be ready for a class of kids or a small group of kids to come out and do science at the lake. So here's our post office box, and we can also accept donations on our website. This is what our website looks like, and it has a donation button at the bottom. You can use PayPal or your credit card. We also like to mention one of our partners, the Lake Merritt Institute, that helps to maintain habitat around Lake Merritt for many of our native species by taking trash out of the lake. And they have volunteer programs. If you're interested, contact Lake Merritt Institute, their director, executive director, James Robinson. Wonderful service to our city. So, as primary stewards of the Lake Merritt Wildlife Refuge, Rotary Nature Center Friends regularly hosts school groups and members of the general population at Lake for all of these activities. We also do virtual and online activities, always keeping an eye on and observing the public health rules and requirements. So with that, I want to bring our program to a close tonight briefly, and then we will reopen about 3 minutes for any further discussion. So thank you so much for coming to another really great program, and thanks so much to Audra and to Patty for putting this together and being here with us tonight. Okay, so I'm going to stop screen sharing. It is now 8:04. Let's take 1 minute to breathe, and then please unmute yourselves, everyone, and raise a hand or write in chat, and we'll maybe have a few more minutes for Audra to take your questions. So Audra, did you have pet snakes when you were growing up?
No. I found out, I always wanted one, but I found out as an adult that my dad is actually very afraid of snakes. which is why he always said no. I did bring home my first snake when I was 17, and I did live at my parents' house, and my dad did find out, and he let it slide, which was like kind of impressive. He just like, just don't let it get out. It's like, okay, that's fair. I can handle that. But I will say that my dad actually called me a few months ago to tell me that he had helped a snake cross the road. He did not pick it up and move it, but he walked next to the snake across the street. He chaperoned a snake across the street. So we've come a long way.
Impressive.
Yes.
Anyone has a snake encounter story that you might want to share
Well,
with Audra?
I have a snake encounter story. I was probably 7 or 8, and I found a garter snake on the sidewalk, and I knew that it wasn't a rattlesnake but it did curl up and it shook its tail. And when I picked it up, it bit me, and I didn't know before that their teeth go backwards. So to get their teeth off your thumb, you have to shove your thumb in a little more to get it off. And it was one of those things where my brain was saying, I can't be scared of this. This isn't a weird, scary thing. But it was doing everything everybody told me it would. And it was like one of those, I was calm and I could handle this, and anybody can do this. So good stories. I can also tell you I know how snakes are male and female, but that's a really long story. So I'll hold off on that one. Next.
Well, so do all snakes have 2 penises?
Yeah.
Wow.
All reptiles,
All-
turtles, lizards, also.
Wow.
Do birds?
I don't know about bird genitals.
If reptiles evolved into birds. Interesting. Now you'll be thinking about that all night, won't you?
Someone out here. How long did it take to train the ringneck snake to eat mice?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. By the time the third owner, the one that donated it to our programs, got the snake, I think they were so far removed that he couldn't really tell me anything about its history, exactly when it had been collected or even where it had been collected. So I don't know how long they took them to get it to eat pink mice. But it's one of the only snakes we have that does get live mice every week, whereas everybody else eats frozen, no problem. That snake does still want live mice.
Joy, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. We had reptiles when I was little, so I've never been afraid of reptiles. Very grateful to my parents for doing that. And every place I've ever worked, I've always been known as like the animal person. So whenever there was any animal issue, I was called on, even though it was office work. And one place I worked, this was about 40 years ago. It was in a, small office building that was next to a large empty field. And somehow a little garter snake got into the office that was closest to the door that led to that field. I knew it was a garter snake because we had a garter snake, so I knew what it was. So they phoned me and said, there's a snake in our office. Can you come down and do anything about this? So I walked down the hall and I went into the room and saw all the men and women standing on their desks. It was like that scene in Dead Poets Society, So I picked up the little snake and I kind of displayed him for people to see, and I took him outside and I went around the wall and took him off to bushes and put him there. And I was really glad I got to have that opportunity to do that. And I felt very macho doing that. And everybody was very impressed that I could pick up the snake.
I am.
Janet.
Yeah. When we were kids, my little brother had a friend named Davy. And Davy had a 6-foot black snake. This was back in Missouri, named George. And George was all the kids, they thought very highly of George. One time, Davy came home from school and found this circle of great big grown-up cops, with all their guns and everything in a circle in the front yard. It seems that George had gotten loose and someone had called the cops. And all the cops were terrified of this black snake. And they're all standing around, these big, strong men, staring at this black snake. And little Davy, who I think he must have been 5th grade, 6th grade, comes in and says, "Oh, George got loose," goes in, grabs the snake, takes him inside. And all the cops are just sitting there. I've always loved those images.
Hi, Audra. This is David Wofford. I'm co-chair of the Nature Center Friends with Katie. And I want to thank you for your presentation and thank Patty for putting together this wonderful program.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you again. I feel like I've learned so much and so quickly.
Yay, mission accomplished.
And I'll be lucky if I ever run into a rattler, and I'll be able to recognize the difference between its full body and full head and full tail of a gopher. But I wonder if you could speak to the adaptation of the shedding of the skin, of maybe how that came about and the role and purpose that it plays.
Oh, I love it. Okay, snake shed. So basically all animals, I think, kind of shed their skin in one way or another. We do it, it's dander, it's dust. When snakes do it, it comes off in one piece. So essentially what's happening is that when a snake's skin gets too small, a new skin, a bigger snake is underneath and it breaks through, and the old snake skin has to come off to make space for it. So this is actually smaller than the next set of scales, and that's how they grow. And they generally grow in one piece. They find stuff to rub their bodies against, and it comes off inside out. And they have different types of scales, and you can really see the scales on the shed. So we've got the big belly scales on the shed. And that's what allows them to really slide around on the ground. And then on the back, they have smaller scales. And sometimes with some of the snakes, the pattern actually does come across in the shed. Not with all the snakes, and I don't know why that's the case. But this one, you can really see the pattern, and the smaller scales are for protection. They're for protecting them when they're, cruising through the ground and there's rocks and sticks and stuff. And also from predators, just an extra layer to keep them safe.
Good question.
Since we're talking about shedding, when they shed their skin or their covering, then when they grow it back again, do they hide until they have the new skin?
It's already there. It's already underneath. It's underneath.
Oh, okay.
But when they're getting ready to shed, snakes don't have eyelids. So they have a scale over their eye, and that'll start to it'll start to come off, right? Their skin's getting ready to come off. And so it makes it hard for them to see, because now they have a little space essentially between their eye scale and their actual eyeball. Mm-hmm. So a lot of snakes, when they're getting ready to shed, they do kind of tuck away, just because their eyesight isn't as great. So they're a little more vulnerable to everything. So when our snakes are shedding, we can tell because their eyes go white or light blue or something. And then we actually skip them. So we have enough animal ambassadors that will rotate through when they are shedding, they don't come out, because just to keep the stress a little lower because of that.
Now your gopher snake
is there an average number of
beautifully slimy? Was that freshly molted?
Yeah, actually, the garter snake did just molt.
Yeah, she was so
Yeah,
shiny,
the last like 4
really
days.
clean. All the bad stuff kind of flakes off with the skin. They look just like pure. Sorry,
does.
David, I think I overstepped you. Were you asking something? Go ahead.
I would, but is molting and shedding the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I was asking, is there an average number of sheddings per snake per year? I mean, per lifetime?
Well, the age range really varies. I actually think there was a question about age range for things like our ringneck snake. In the wild, it's average 10 years. In captivity, up to 20 years. So it's almost doubles the lifespan of animals in captivity. And when they're babies, they shed pretty often. They're growing really quick. They're eating a lot. They're shedding maybe once a month or so on average when they're young. And once they're about adult size, they really slow down in growth. Reptiles will continue to grow their entire life, but once they are an adult, it does drastically slow down. And at that point, they shed less often, every few months. In captivity, at least that's what I've seen. I'm guessing that probably in the wild, they grow a little slower because there's less access to food and they're expelling more energy, just staying safe and all those sorts of things.
Oh, fascinating. This is a really wonderful program. Thank you so much.
Yeah, snakes are so cool. There's so much to learn about the natural world and so much that we just don't even know yet, and I guess what really scares me is that we're like losing it faster than we even understand what's there. We don't even know all the critters that are out there, and it's, so it's important that we really like protect what's left, because there's not a lot left, at this point. So, and there's so much more cool stuff that we want to learn. We should learn.
Can one of the co-hosts check for Janet Roth and see if she has a question?
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we figured out the muting, unmuting thing.
I just want to clarify a question. So a gardener snake and a gopher snake, a gopher snake is a gardener snake?
No, two different snakes. So gopher snake is the one with, well, here's a little card of it. So we actually hand these out at the end of our programs to continue the snake conversation at home. So gopher snake's got the blotches. Gopher snake looks like the baby racer. It looks like a rattlesnake. They have that similar pattern. Whereas the garter snake, which is probably the one you'll see in your backyard most often, gopher snakes do. Garter snakes have the stripe. They have a stripe that goes down their back, and they're smaller, a lot smaller.
Like the old-fashioned garters that men used to wear on their socks, right? Is that what they were named after?
Probably.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you all for the questions. It's really fun to chat with adults about snakes. I appreciate you all taking the time on this Friday evening to hang out with me and talk about reptiles. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday weekend.
Thank you, Audra. I have a quick
Liana.
comment here. I would be curious. I've been the last few years working with the Oakland Museum on early California history, and I would be curious about sort of the role of snakes in history. I haven't come across much yet, but after this talk, I'll definitely be curious and looking.
Yeah, that I love thinking about the way that people have interacted with reptiles and amphibians over time. And it's fun because a lot of people have like different stories. Like my grandfather told me that they kept black salamanders in the well and they would keep the water clean. And I'm like, I don't think that's the water clean. I don't know about the water clean, but like, that's interesting that people thought that like, oh, if I keep the salamander in my water, it's actually a good thing for my water. So the interactions between people and animals over time is extremely fascinating.
Thank you, Audra, and thank you,
Thank you.
Katie, for allowing us to do this program. I'm so pleased. I'm so glad Anoush is there. Anoush is one of the developers of the snake program. She's amazing and another incredible woman on this board and with this program. So please support them and know they exist. Kids need them. Thank you, Katie. Can't wait to see what you guys come up with on the docks tomorrow, and we'll be seeing you out on Lake Merritt soon. Good to see you, David.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful holiday weekend. We're looking for if you have any questions that you haven't asked or they come up after the show, just send them to me and I'll forward them to Audra. And yeah, it'll be great. And we'll share all the information about contact and with you. If you think about somebody who really needs to know about these programs for their kids and their classes.
Great. Tell teachers. Tell
Absolutely.
teachers.
Yes. And you know, when belongs at the nature center at Lakeside Park. Yeah.
Everybody keep your fireworks away from the snakes.
Good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay then. We'll
Thank you, everyone.
say good night. And again, really appreciate
Good night.
Audra and Patty and wonderful everybody for taking part tonight. Hope to see you again next month. Take care.
Yeah.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Good night.
Good night. Oh, that was awesome.
It was great.
Yes. Wow.
You guys are wonderful. Thank you.
Just amazing. Salsa, you're still there. Allison, you're still there.
Yeah. I'm going to say good night, all. Take
Good
care.
night,
Good
Patty.
night.
Thank you for your wonderful program.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, David, I'm thinking about Ileamo Day, to have them actually participate with this snake program. I think it's very good for our kids to really learn that what they're looking at, you know?
Yes, it's a great program. I feel so enlightened.
Me too. And a Sequoia Elementary was the other one I was thinking about. You know, I think those two, I'll work on that. That'll be my little personal project. Bye.
That's a great connection.
Okay. Take care.
Okay, everyone.
Let the Rotary Center Friends be the sponsors of the program.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Well, we'll figure out how to do all of that.
Yes.
I'll get back with Katie. Bye-bye.
All right, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.